So far, so good. Percentages showed favored. Hello, good evening. This is Taiwan Ojobi, your host of the known as Maple Sports. We like to drive a lot of unfiltered opinion, sharp analysis, and some big love for Canadian hoops and ice. We're always happy to bring you guys the NBA, EBL, and we try to carve out some small space for smart hockey talk. Today, we're going to be dwelling on some smart hockey talk. I'm happy to let you guys know that the Olympics is over. It was a wonderful game between the US and the Canadian team. I had the opportunity of watching the game. I was somewhere in, I think, Atlanta around that time when we were playing, moving to Florida, and I was able to catch up with that game. And I can tell you for a fact that everybody in the airport was watching the game. We had over 27 million viewers that were recorded on just one of the platforms. You understand? One of the platforms just had 27 million people viewing the final game between the US and Canada. It was different. It was different energy. And the US team, shout out to them, they put on that grit. They were defensive. Their defensemen were wonderful. I think even the goaltender deserves a special applause because 44 saves, coming from Hellenbach, the guy was something else, And if you have been able to translate that performance to the Winnipeg Jets, maybe the Winnipeg Jets will be in a better position now. But let's put that out of the way and just give flowers to the right people. That guy was very outstanding. They defended for their lives. The moment they were able to score one goal, they knew that the Canadian team was going to come out and was going to put a lot of pressure on them. So what they did was they just went back and they defended that one goal. When it was very close to the end of the third quarter, the Canadian team was able to put in another goal, which pushed them to overtime. There were a couple of issues that came up, but I'll probably not really dwell on the US-Canada game for that much because, the NHL has started and a couple of games have, started going since 25th, and I would like to just jump on some of the games that stood out over the last few days. However, one thing that stood out most was the last hockey games that we had around the Olympic time, which was the Winter Olympics. Overtime was 4x4, which means we had four players on the puck. Normally in NHL, we always have 3 players on the puck for overtime, but the players were not really used to having 3 at that level, especially with the fact that they are playing a lot of people that have played within Europe, and not all those European players that come to the Olympics play in the NHL. So most of them are used to 4x4 or even 5x5. But NHL is the only sport where regular season in overtime, they play 3x3. And taking it down into the Olympics was a different adjustment, especially for the European players that were playing at that level. However, it was different because I don't think it's an excuse for the Canadian team. The Canadian team had all it takes to perform at a very high level. In fact, at the overtime, there was a mistake because we had two of our players committing so much, going all in, and they lost the ball. And, the US team used that opportunity to do a counter. And that was how Hughes, a very young guy that plays for, I think he plays for the Detroit team. Yeah, a very young guy. His name is Hughes. He just used that opportunity and he took advantage of the situation, and he was able to score. However, one thing I see generally is the Canadian team played their lives out. They had more attempts on goal. They had over 37 attempts before the overtime at the time that I was watching, compared to I think 10 or 11 by the US team. The US team didn't really come out that much. They didn't plan to attack. All they just did was they sat back to keep their lone goal and protect their goal. So the Canadian team, the only thing is the Canadian team just fell into a situation where the US goaltender was having a good day and he defended at a very high level, and that was why the Canadian team could not go as far. That's why they could not go for the gold. But they still won silver. It's still an opportunity for them to celebrate something. It's still a major medal in the Olympics, and, they had to go with silver. But the good thing is the entire country, Canada, I like the way they approached it. It was either gold or nothing. Not getting the gold was a big failure. And that was the way they approached it. It shows that level of excellence. And I like seeing that. A lot of other European countries also competed. We had Germany, we had Slovakia, we also had Czechia, who the Canadian teams also beat out at some point. So for me, I like the level of excellence where the Canadian team had already set. It's either gold or nothing. And the US team took it to the extreme. They were so excited. I even saw a video of their locker room, how they celebrated the gold. It's okay, it's good. It's also good for Austin Matthews, who plays for the Toronto Maple Leafs. At least now he has his hand on silverware and has gotten the opportunity to go back to Toronto and try and at least bring a silverware to Canada. And a good number of those players that also played for the USA play for Canadian teams as well. So that's okay. Maka that also plays for Canada. Maka McCannon, they play for Canadian teams, which is the Colorado Avalanche. So we're still brothers. We're still together. Shout out to the Canadian team. They put in the right effort. They did not cheat us when it comes to efforts. And I keep saying that they tried their best and, better luck next time. In 2010, when Canada was hosting the Olympics and it was already 2-2 going into overtime already. Crosby was the guy that was the major difference maker and he got the ball from Iggy. Full name Iginla, got the ball from Iggy and he scored the goal that made the difference back then in Vancouver in 2010. And that was how Canada decided to dominate. And the story changed when it comes to hockey. But that story for another day. Let's go into the crux of today. Now that Olympics is officially over, we're preparing for Paralympics and we just have about 7 days to the Paralympics, and that's how the culture has been. Once Olympics is over or once Winter Olympics is over, we prepare, a few more days and we start the Paralympics. However, hockey is back with 24 games to the end of the season. A lot of teams have a deadline between now and the 6th of March to be able to go to the draft market and try and see whether they can trade some players or bring in some players to help improve the team, because they have just 24 games to make that difference and it has to start counting now. I was able to catch up with some games and I see that a lot of teams are coming back with new energy after representing their country. Some players had a few weeks to rest, 2 or 3 weeks to rest. Even the coach of Edmonton Oilers had the opportunity to rest as well, since he wasn't coaching in the Olympics. He traveled a bit, moved around Canada, and he's back. And now there's a lot of energy. We need to get it rolling. So a couple of games I've looked at and I felt that let me just bring out those games, try and point out good performances that have happened within the week under review in preparations for the next couple of games. Some teams have 23 games because they've played their first game after the Winter Olympics. Some have 24 because this week as well, later this evening and tomorrow, a couple of teams will be playing their first game after the Olympics. But that being said, I also wanted to use the opportunity to celebrate Celebrini. Celebrini was outstanding in the Olympics. Young sensation, number 1 pick, who joined the San Jose Sharks. He had a very, very wonderful Olympics. It was really helping the team, even though it struggled when we're getting towards the quarterfinal and the final. And that's where McDavid and experience had to really come up. And one of the reasons why I felt that we couldn't challenge in the final was because the injury that Crosby had. Crosby had an injury that kind of affected his ability to support the team or be on the ground and, try to just make it count. But, it's still okay. Life is in phases and men are in sizes. There's nothing we can do. Right now, they have to go back to the basics, to NHL, and try and see how they can challenge with their team and qualify for the postseason. What we don't want to do this year is we don't want to qualify for the wild card. A good game that we had this week was the Buffalo Sabres versus the New Jersey Devils. I think, quick correction, Hughes that scored the final goal is with the New Jersey Devils. Yes, I just remember now. Yeah, because he was celebrated when he came back to play for the New Jersey Devils. They clapped for him and they had standing ovation for him. So I corrected that in good time. Buffalo was able to get, themselves to winning ways coming back from the Olympics. I'm also happy for them. I saw the way they were trolling. A lot of the players on the Buffalo Sabres team had good rest during the Winter Olympics, so they are back refreshed and they are so energetic. I like the way they kept the neutral zone tight. They made sure that every space was exploited. The New Jersey team was just outside their entries. They couldn't go in. They couldn't go in on possession. The zones were covered. It looks like Buffalo Sabres is coming on a mission. And I remember when I did the rating for the divisions, I said it that the Buffalo Sabres are surprising me with some wins. They didn't really start well this season, but in the first period, if you look at the Buffalo Sabres and the New Jersey team, they didn't generate a lot of threats, but Buffalo looked like they were a bit more more hungry. Going into the second period, Buffalo decided to tilt the ice. They started going in a different direction. And I liked the way the three guys, combined, McLeod, Krebs, Thompson. I liked their rotation, the way they were doing that triangle. I liked it very well. And that was how the opening goal came, because the pressure was coming, and at some point the opening goal was going to come. Krebs with a lot of support, Biram, Thompson finding the soft ice for the finish. And New Jersey struggled a bit in the second period, trying to see how they can come back, but it was very, very difficult for them. Now, going into the third period, the Buffalo team was already on top. They showed more grit. They showed like they wanted it more. So they managed the game a bit better. The Devils were just chasing them all throughout the game. So they shifted it to more of like a possession first kind of game, low risk posture, similar to what the US did when playing against the Canadian team. And one thing I failed to mention, the US team was lucky because they had a goaltender that was on top of his game. The match would have ended like 4 or 5-1, because that's approach that the US used. Once they scored one goal, they went back to defend. And that's very, very difficult in hockey. And the Canadian team kept pressing, but they just had a good goaltender that had a good game, and he had 44 saves, and that was the difference. He had over 99% in his performance. For the New Jersey Devils, they tried to push a bit, and eventually they were able to, get a goal, and that was how the game ended 2-1. And the Buffalo Sabres were able to get, all the full wins away from home. That was a very, very good one for them. Goaltending was very, very stabilizing. Lukanen tried his best with about 0.964. And that mattered a lot, because his style kind of forced the opponent into volume shots that did not have quality. And that's where, goaltending comes in. And I tried to just do some analysis on why I feel the Buffalo team, why they won. They had a lot of discipline around the neutral zones. Now, these are zones in which you call low pressure zones. Very, very, they denied the New Jersey team from rush games. For complete 50 minutes, they make sure that they neutralize those zones with a lot of discipline. They had supportive offensive structure. Looking at the way Krebs and Thompson were, that triangle formation, they did it well, and it was helping them. They created some inside lanes with that triangle formation, and it helped to be able to support the puck. And that's why they were able to avoid a lot of offside situations. I like the defensive pairing, Biram, Darling, and Power. The Samuelson movement, I like it as well. It controlled tempo for the exits for them, and that's how they were able to, squeeze out that win away from the New Jersey Devils. Shout out to them. Hopefully, with the next 23 games, they're able to push it a bit and get out of, because presently, I think they are within the wild card zone. Based on my last analysis, they need to get out of the wild card zone and make it count, for themselves to be able to challenge in the postseason. Washington defeated the Philadelphia Flyers 3-1. And Washington is still a good team, not a scrub. And they will always control every game. Even though they have an aging team, but they are still very good. Philadelphia Flyers don't look like they are really ready. It looks like they are still going through some kind of vacation, because they played a bit slower than the usual. Even though they don't look like a team that will really make any noise this postseason, but Washington looks like they are a bit urgent. And in that game, I saw the tactical flow. If you look at the first period, and both teams were a bit cautious. Nobody really wanted to press any button. They just wanted to be a bit more stable. Neither side generated any pressure. So for me, I was just watching. First period was a bit neutral. Philly was depending a lot on their Zegras, Tippett, and Michkov, without layering any support for them. Washington in their fourth line, and the pressure and neutral zones, they made sure that everything was tight, tried to put some retrieval pressure. It looks like they were a bit more, they wanted it more. So that's what I saw in the game, and that was why the second period opened a bit more. Washington began in the middle of the ice. They started putting a lot of pressure. The Flyers now went back into a defensive zone. And, the third period, everything just opened up, and that's how they controlled the game. But the good thing is Washington went with a very clinical win, making sure that they did not give the Philadelphia any opportunity to sniff, even coming back through neutral zone discipline. And this is why I feel the Washington team controlled the game. Philly, they kind of denied Philly that speed. Philly is a team that likes to work with speed and force them to do a lot of dumping. So that means they give up the ball even before getting into the offensive zone of the other side. They did more of what I call cleaner defensive exits. And Washington was able to do that well with Roy and Chitron. running the play very, very well. They were consistently beating the first forechecker, and their forecheck game was different. It was on a very high level. The Washington team had better interior presence, were a bit more involved in everything happening, and that's why they were able to take advantage of it. Better interior presence across board. They also had goaltending edge. They had a better goaltender, and the Flyers were just disjointed. They were not challenging the way they should be challenging. But what does this really say about the Washington team? We have a lot of expectations from them this season, but they can grind out games. Whether you like it or not, they have an aging team, but they can grind out games. Philadelphia did not have that sustained possession, and the interior attack that was expected was not coming at the right time. So they became reliant on individual skill or players to be able to come up with magic, and that was where they were getting it wrong. But so far, so good. Percentages showed favored Washington a bit better on their face-off control. They were doing 54% on team FO's percentage. We had Dowd, Strom, and Leonard giving us the right line support, and that was where the puck recoveries really happened. So I really like that. If you're looking at the high danger conversion, Washington did well. We're doing about 2 for 3, and they were 67%. And, looking at the weak side activation, they made sure that they take advantage. And there were a lot of mismatches automatically happening with the way they went around it. But I like the efficiency. The penalty kill efficiency was 100% for Washington, and it also helped them, stay till the end. Shout out to them, and, let them continue this momentum, and hopefully they're able to challenge or make some noise in the postseason. The next game is Toronto losing to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa Bay Lightning is another team I'm watching for this season. They are in Florida. The present champions are the Florida Panthers. Tampa Bay Lightning, before the Winter Olympics, demolished the Florida Panthers. It caused a serious fight. You understand? After winning them, there in Florida. So, to me, that is the sign that you are telling me that there's a new sheriff in town. The only way you can be the best is for you to go and challenge the best. And that's what Tampa Bay is doing. They've been able to challenge the best, and now they are telling everybody that we are here to stay. They are number one in their division, and they are going to definitely challenge in this postseason. Now, a lot of people have forgotten that the coach of Tampa Bay Lightning was the Canadian coach in the Olympics. The guy is playing at a very high level. He has won at a very high level, and he's quite good. He's a Canadian-American, but a very good coach. So watch out for him. He's coming. They demolished the Toronto team 4-2 with an Austin Matthews on that same roster. It was very, very good for them. I like the way they went about it. If you look at their core percentage takeaways, Toronto's goaltending save percentage was 0.889 SV percentage, which is much lower than Vasilevsky, doing about 0.941 SV percentage. Very elite performance from the goaltender with Tampa Bay. They made sure that every single ball was contested, and that was what decided the game. It was not a disastrous performance from the Toronto team, but it also showed that the Tampa Bay Lightning are telling everybody that we are the new sheriffs in town. So Tampa Bay's goaltending, for me, there was no how I won't call it out and celebrate it. It was very, very good. Wonderful performance. The face-off win percentage, Toronto centers, if you look at the performance from the centers, I really liked it, but it was not enough. Tavares was doing 52.9%. Matthews was doing 66.7%. Loughton was also doing 62.5%. Roy 47.1%, but Robertson and Jancroft did not give us good production. So that's why they both had 0%. But if you look at the Tampa Bay centers, they performed slightly better when you are looking at the percentages, even though they did have up to 6 of them at a very high level. So Tampa Bay had Point with 56.5%. They had God with 26.7%, which is quite low. They had Gijensen with 57.1% and Omberg with 75.0%. That interpreted strictly well that the teams had pockets of dominance, whether you like it or not. Toronto's top centers, Matthew, Tavares, and Lawton, were very strong. And you have to give flowers where it's due. But Tampa Bay's Holberg was the centerpiece. It countered effectively across board, and that's where the power play efficiency comes in. Toronto had one power play goal shown, but there was no full power play count provided. That was why the Tampa Bay was able to take advantage of it. Tampa Bay team, they played on the puck. They made sure that everything was decided on the floor. They were a special team this time around. Their coach is coming from a different energy, coming from the from the Olympics. So once he came in, he just made sure that he was making it count. So Tampa doubled Toronto's shooting efficiency, and that was why they had better SV percentage, and the gap was also there. So on the ice, plus minus, looking at value addition, Nylander was a +0 with very neutral. Matthew was +1. Nice was 0. Tavares was -1. If you look at the Lightning guys on the point at +4, Goncalves had +4, Kucherov +3, McDonough +3. Everybody put in their own effort to make sure that they were adding value across board. And the +5.2 percentage from the goaltending also gave Tampa Bay that extra edge. And that's why they were able to go in and win. Shout out to them. I'm rooting for Tampa Bay. I like them. I like their coach. And I like the way he was able to help Team Canada at least get to the final. They put in the right effort, but, unfortunately, better luck some other time. I'm looking at the Seattle Kraken team. They played against Dallas. Dallas was able to get a comfortable win away from them, the Dallas Stars. And if you look at the goaltending save percentage, the Seattle team goaltender Dakot tried his best. He was doing about 0.875 on SV percentage. For me, it's very well below the average. So if you are playing like that and you're able to take in 4 goals, it means that you're not really playing at a very high level. 3 goals have been allowed within the second period alone. So it continues to sink confidence of any goaltender at that stage. Dallas had the Smith doing 0.947 on SV percentage. Very high-end performance. I like what I saw from him. And he made it difficult for Seattle to even have any chance of coming back because they had very, very, few dangerous looks. And he made sure that goaltending was a reason why, Dallas was able to come up with this win. Dallas had a 7.2 percentage point advantage in the net, and that was where the low shot game came in, and that's where they just created that separation and they were able to go ahead to win it all. And I like what I'm seeing. Seattle had 1 goal on 19 shots, that was 5.3%, while Dallas had 4 goals on 32 shots, which is 12.5%. That is the difference, and that's a major one. It means that they had more clinical shots, while Seattle had just 1 shot on goal with 19 shots. Dallas was more than doubled, in their performance against Seattle finishing rates. Seattle generated almost nothing dangerous as far as I'm concerned. As in, I saw the game and I really wanted more from Seattle, but I do really see them. I've said it in my ratings, divisional ratings, that nothing much may come out of Seattle this postseason, but there's a lot more, you understand, that they can do within these next 24 games, just to at least maybe get into the first round as a wild card, enjoy themselves, and start to plan for next season. On the face-off percentage, Seattle centers, I think they tried their best. Benias was doing 50%, Cartons 56.7%, Gaudreau did 50%, Meyers 36.4%, Stevenson 35.3%, and Wright at 40%. So their centers were, for me, they were above average, but it was not enough. Dallas centers were slightly better, with Duchenne doing 76.9%. Raichowian did 55.6%, which was very good. Hyrie did 75%, Johnston 33.3%, and Blackwell did 33.3%. All putting in their right effort to put their teams in better positions to succeed. So on the ice, there was a share plus minus. Multiple forwards were having -1, -2 on the Seattle team. So that's not really good. But Dallas had a lot of positives, and that's why they were able to go ahead and, create that separation with extra 3 goal separation. And that helped them to go ahead and get the win. Shout out to them, and, hopefully they're able to push a bit. But I don't see the Dallas Stars doing so much this postseason. The Colorado Avalanche started their season. The break that was anticipated for the for the Winter Olympics, came back with a more energetic Colorado team, beating the Utah Mammoth, which used to be the Utah Hockey Club, 4-2. I like what I'm seeing from them. They are now going back to winning ways. But I watched their game yesterday, which I won't have the opportunity of doing analysis about today. I watched their game yesterday, and they were defeated yesterday by a very, very tough team. And it shows that teams can also defeat them no matter what. But I won't really talk about it today, but they are still a very good team. McKinnon struggled a bit. In fact, he lost a possession that led to a goal in the match I watched yesterday. But today I'll just focus on their performance against the Utah Mammoth. They reduced the Utah Mammoth to a team that could not really see their front. They couldn't allow them. Key percentages showed that they were dominating. And that's the #1 team when it comes to the Western Conference. They're playing very well, playing at a very high level. Colorado's 4-2. win for me was clearly good goaltending percentage. Wedgwood was having the game of his life with 0.933 on SV percentage. Strong was able to stabilize the team and keep everything going. For Utah, their goaltender Vech Melka had about 0.840 on SV percentage. So it's a losing number for me. Once you're able to get in more than 3 goals coming in, you're already in some kind of exposure. 4 goals on 25 shots is too soft. It shows that he needs to improve. So Colorado was able to get away this win with a 9.3 percentage point advantage in the net, while the puck is active. So that alone explains most of the outcome. You don't need to go deep. This is the best team, in their conference, best team in their division. They have scored the highest number of goals and points this season. You understand? So imagine a team going into Detroit and defeating them 5-0. None of the goals were unreturned, and this was even before the Winter Olympics. So they are doing so well. Colorado had 4 goals on 25 shots, which is 16%, quite good, while Utah had just 2 goals on 30 shots. So it means that they were a bit more clinical, directing their shots the right way, and they doubled Utah's finishing rate at every point in time. I like their forecheck game. I also like the way they go into the zones. Colorado had 1 power play goal, and Utah had just 1 power play goal as well. So they were 100% unlisted opportunities if you look at it. But if you look at the face-off percentage, I can tell you they were clearly balanced. For Colorado, Kelly 54.5%, Drury 39.1%, Nelson 37.5%. Nelson had a good game. He played for Team USA. Badakov had 40%. Brindley had 100%. So if you look at it well, Colorado was very balanced. Utah too, apart from Keller that had 0%, they had Cooley with 66.7%, 18 with 58.3%, and Stenlord with 77.8%. So if you look at it well, fairly balanced for me, but they just had 2 of their centers that did not add value, like Peteka today had value the way we would have wanted. Looking at on ice goal share and adding value, while on ice, a lot of the Colorado guys are with positive, with Nelson, Neckars, Olofsson, Kelly, all doing doing well at the high level. But the good thing is the Utah Mammoths, they kind of just feel that maybe they can be a wild card this season. I don't see them doing much when it comes to making a lot of noise in the postseason. They may not be able to do much, but I like what I'm seeing. For goaltending, for Colorado was a plus 9.3%, and that was why they won. If you're looking at percentages, they doubled the shooting efficiency. On ice, they added more value. They wanted it more, and that was the momentum breaking area. A lot of their top players are still playing at a very high level, so they won efficiency battle across board, and they dominated a bit more. Winnipeg team was able to bounce back to winning ways, but this winning ways was against a Vancouver team, which is also a Canadian team, and they won 3-2 in overtime. I'm happy because Winnipeg at least has started showing that they want to fight a bit more. Looking at the fact that their goaltender also was the permanent goaltender for the US team, and he was the difference maker in why the US team have gold today. He was, playing at a very high level. Looking at the Winnipeg team, they didn't have their goaltender play, but Comrie was the one that stood in for him while he's still recovering from a very wonderful performance in the Olympics. Comrie was doing 0.913 on SV percentage. He was very strong, stabilizing, the league average baseline. And Vancouver goaltender, which is Tolopilo, had about 0.893 on SV. Not terrible, but below the winning threshold for me. And that's where, if you're looking at a tight game, you probably still want to be above 9 points, at least 0.94. For you to be able to keep your team in it. You understand? So Winnipeg had that extra 2-point percentage advantage in the net and 1 goal overtime game. So that margin is meaningful for me. Both teams played well. Vancouver is also fighting for their lives. And, you can tell clearly that they also want to be able to win something this time around. So if you look at the impact, Winnipeg finished slightly better. Just slightly better for me. The late overtime goal was just the difference. No power play goals for either side. If you look at the entire game, they didn't have any power play goal. The face-off percentage was fairly, okay. Had Schiffer with 55%, Toes with 52.9%, Lowry 46.7%. And if you look at the other way, Kampf had 63.6% as well. For Vancouver, we had Rossi with 53.8%, Peterson for 7.1%, and Bluga with 23.1%. So it shows that fairly even game, if you look at it. Kane also had +0 based on ice, plus minus share. So we can tell clearly that they both had what it takes to be able to. It could have gone either ways, generally. For me, what I would just say is this team should, continue to put in the right effort. I know it may just It may just take a little bit of more from them, while coming back from the Olympics. They'll need more effort because just 24 games, and you probably have a few number of games to make it count. So, thank you very much for staying till the end. We always say we like to make sure we bring you premium hockey and make sure that we analyze it in a different way. Enjoy the rest of the evening, and God bless.